guys, it's Isabella here and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be my reading wrap-up of the year, so all the books that I have read in the year 2025. So in all, I have read 49 books. That includes novels, graphic novels, which count, and short stories. So I've read a variety of things, and yeah. So to start, I have made 2 videos this year on reading. I did a whole video on my October reads and my reviews of them, so I won't be going over those books again in too much detail for those of you who have seen that video already. But for those of you who haven't, I will go over those books just a little bit. And I also went over a mid-year book tag as well, where I went over how many books I read in the first half of the year. So those books I will also not go into too much depth about since I already have. But without further ado, now let's get into the books. Okay, so I started the year of 2025 by reading some short stories, and those are some of the Grimm Brothers fairy tales. So yeah, I got this cute paper mill press edition, has some illustrations inside. Anyway, it's got some illustrations, not very many, but like the Sleeping Beauty. Anyway, so I started my year reading some short stories to get ahead of my reading goal, so I decided to read some of the Grimm's fairy tales. And I had a lot of fun with these. As I've mentioned before, I gave most of these stories like 4 stars. The ones I read include The Frog Prince, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, Little Red Cap, The 12 Dancing Princesses, which is so dark, by the way. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. I need someone to make a movie of that story. It's so good. I read Cinderella and Hansel and Gretel. So some of those stories are in this edition, some aren't, but yeah, I highly recommend reading some of these. They're not too dark, they're just a bit dark, but not too bad. I thought it would be worse, so I recommend giving this a little read. If you like the classic fairy tales and you like fairy tale things, then you're gonna like these stories. And they're the darker kind of fairy tales, which I really do enjoy. So if you like those kinds of darker fairy tales, I think you'll like these. They're classics for a reason, and I had fun with them. So this next one was my first novel of 2025, and that is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And this is a beautifully illustrated edition by Page Classics. This book is beautiful. It has all kinds of illustrations. And this book is beautiful, but it's also such a fun story to read. I gave this a 4-star, and in my review, I wrote that it was such a whimsically written classic and story. I thought it would be boring, but it was really cute, and I had a fun time reading it. I enjoyed this more than the original film, and so much more going on in the book. And I liked that. It kept me engaged, which usually what happens with watching an adaptation and then reading the book, usually I'm bored because the story is quite similar. But thankfully that wasn't a problem. I actually thought this was more engaging than the film, and I love the Land of Oz. Anytime I get to go back here, I love it. That's why I'm currently reading Wicked, but I wanted to read the original story first. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys read this at least once. It's really just a classic for a reason. The next book that I read in 2025 was The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black, and I really loved this book. I love Holly Black. I love her Cruel Prince universe / Elfhame world. Anyway, so yep, I read this, and this is the second book in the Stolen Heir duology, which is a duology in her Elfhame universe / Cruel Prince universe. I gave this 4-star. I really had so much fun with it. Some people didn't like it, but I really, really loved it. I totally would reread this again in the future. I just had so much fun with these books. Anyway, I gave it a 4.5, and I wrote that this was a really good book. I was never bored, and I love Oak and Wren so much. Even getting to see Jude and Carden again was a hoot. The ending was a little lackluster for me, but besides that, I loved this book. Anything Holly Black writes, I'll read. So, yeah, it's a fantasy book. If you guys like the stories about the Fae and stuff like that, and it's young adult, recommend these books. Really just has so much fun. I love these characters. The next book I read is a bit of a piece of nostalgia for me as I watched these movies as a kid, and that's Arthur and the Minimoys by Luc Besson. I really liked this book. I actually read the second book too, but I couldn't find it physically, so I read it digitally, which was really hard to find. So I read this one, and then I read the second one, which are basically part 1 and part 2 of the same story-ish. But yeah, I watched these movies as a kid, so I wanted to read the original source material, see how different or the same it was. Got some extra content, which I was super happy about. But yeah, the words are really big. It's not that hard to read. I had fun with this. I gave this a 3-star. Read this for the nostalgia of the movie, and it delivered. There are some things I like in the book more than the movie, but some things I like in the movie better than how the book did it. Really fun to read everyone's thoughts during the journey, giving the reader more context. Really fun read. So yeah. The second book I also gave a 3.5. I wrote, this was so much more action-packed than the first book, and I really enjoyed it. These books cover every character's perspective so you can see what they are thinking in specific moments that you can't get from the film. And I love that about books. It gives you more insight into the characters. It even had that sprinkle of romance, which I enjoyed so much. It was cute. The main villain is tragic and menacing, which was fun to read for a younger audience. This book's cover writing was also whimsical. I love how people used to write in the early 2000s / even before. Really had fun reading this and didn't want it to end. So yeah, I really like these books. If you want to give something to a child that's really fun and is imaginative, I would recommend it. Basically, it's just about this boy who, in his garden, there's this whole civilization of these smaller creatures or like people called Minimoys, and I think you guys would really like it. The next book I read in 2025 was obviously Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Now, I've only read the Hunger Games prequels. I have not really read the full trilogy. I think I read the first book in high school and never continued it. So I think I've read 3 books out of the 5 that are in this world. And oh my god, this book was so good. I gave it a 5-star. And I'm super happy with this book. Just picking it up makes me so happy. I remember just enjoying this read so much. I even annotated because I really wanted to. So I wrote in my review, this was a really amazing book. So many beautiful messages that it is trying to convey about love, propaganda. It's so relevant to the world we live in right now. And such an emotional read that isn't all doom and gloom, but has a hopeful ending. This was really bittersweet, and that's what made it beautiful. I couldn't imagine a better backstory for Haymitch. The next book I read, I don't have physically, and that's Scarred by Emily McIntyre. These are part of the Never After series, which is just basically a bunch of not connected fairy tale kind of twisted stuff. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but this one was the Lion King one, and I think it's my favorite one to date that she's written. These are definitely adult, so Yeah, I gave this like a 4-star or something. I don't remember. Oh yeah, here it is. 4.5 actually. I would reread this again. I really would. So I wrote, this was my favorite Never After novel. So that's the series. I love that it took place in a non-contemporary setting with castles and kings and queens, because most of them don't. They take place in contemporary settings, and I don't really care for those kinds of fantasy, fractured fairy tale retellings that are, like, no contemporary, please. I wrote, the slow burn was long, but really well done. And me, I'm very picky about my slow burns, so I really loved it. I love Tristan and Sarah, their banter, the little moments of intimacy spread throughout, and the enemies to lovers / forbidden romance. This was such a fun and enjoyable read. I was always invested, and it was hard to put down, so. The next series that I read this year, I read every single bad guy's graphic novel. I read all 20 so books, and the overall consensus was 4 stars, because each of these books were just so fun, and the artwork was cool, and yeah, I'm kind of sad that there are no more books, but I was also kind of like really in a rush to get through them all. But I just like loved the movies, so I really wanted to see what they were based on, and I see some things that they took from the books and put in the movies, and seeing those connections was just super fun. So if you really like those movies, I would highly suggest trying the graphic novels. They're a bit different, the universe, but it's also kind of connected if you look at certain things that it's really fun. So yeah, if you're looking for some fun graphic novels to make your kids laugh too, I'd say that's a good fun little series of graphic novels. Next, I read a Disney Twisted Tale this year, and that was the Incredibles one, which was Suddenly Super by Jen Kalanita. And this one I had to read digitally, because I could not get it physically for some reason. It isn't sold in stores here. I don't know why. It came out in 2023, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Anyway, I gave this one a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun. I love the world of The Incredibles, so seeing a what-if scenario of how the story could have gone differently, really fun. In my review, I wrote, such a fun story to read. The concept was done in a way I wasn't expecting, and I totally loved it. Every time I picked this up, it was hard to put down. This is definitely an essential read in the Twisted Tales series, and I'm glad I gave it a chance. If you want more content with the Parr children, you'll enjoy this, because it's basically very focused on the children and not the parents, and specifically Violet, and I really identified with her a little bit, and I was just like really enjoying the story and seeing her grow as a character, and she has a lot of development. So if you like Violet as a character and always wanted her to kind of be the main character of The Incredibles a little bit, then this is the book. The next book I read was a library book, so I don't have this physically, and it's Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. This had a bit of a fantasy horror element. Yeah. I liked it. It felt a bit gothic and kind of like just so good. Oh, the fall vibes were immaculate, and I read this in March. And I just loved it. And I gave it a 4.5. I wrote my review, this book was so intriguing and kept me invested the whole time. To some it would be considered slow-paced, but for me it was so interesting that the slow pace didn't bore me like other books. Every time I picked this up, it was hard to put it down. This is a really melancholic story of saying goodbye to your childhood and who you used to be, and I kind of like that. This is a beautiful story with a dark kind of vibe, and I loved it. So if you're looking for something fun to read in the fall, or just if you're in the mood for something fantastical and a little bit spooky-ish, but not scary spooky, just kind of like gothic spooky, then you're gonna get what you want. This next book is a book I've been waiting so long for as a Tinkerbell fan of those Tinkerbell movies that Disney used to make. And that is Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft. Now, I think all of us girlies were shipping Queen Clarion and Lord Mallory from The Secret of the Wings. And we never got that backstory until years now later. And I was so excited when this book was, like, set to come out. I heard about it like a year before it came out, and I was so ecstatic. This was worth the wait, y'all. This was worth the wait. I gave this a 4-star. Absolutely killed it. I loved annotating some of the fairy stuff, important things. The Queen Clarion and Lord Mallory moments, I tabbed the hell out of those. But anyway, for my review, I wrote, "This was such a nostalgic read for me. The writing was phenomenal and really put me right back into this world. It made me feel the vibes I felt watching the Tinkerbell films. Clarion and Mallory's love story is both beautiful and heartbreaking, but in the end, love finds a way. The new characters were well fleshed out. The threat in the book was threatening. The Clarion's character arc was great to watch unfold, and I highly recommend this to any fan of the Tinkerbell / Disney Fairies universe." So, loved this. So happy that came out. Never thought it would happen. Next book that I read is a fantasy book that has spurred quite a bit of controversy, but I really loved it. And that is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. I believe the second book is coming out this January. I fell in love with this so much. It's a colonization kind of story. And it had so much great messaging that really, in a fantasy world, that it related so well, the messages in here, to our world and our history. And it was just so good. I love stories with commentary on how brutal people of minority cultures who were seen as less than were treated and things like that. So I gave this book a 4.75. I wrote in my review, I really enjoyed this book, the different type of heroine who isn't so easily selfless as other protagonists I've seen in so many fantasy books. So I like that about the character. Most people didn't like that about the character, but I felt it was so original, so I liked it. The messages the author is trying to convey are so reminiscent of human history and how we've hurt people for greed and how we need to rise up to see what's right and just be done. And yeah, it's about so much more than a colonizer romance, guys, if you just dig deep. Like, it's so much more than that. So, I highly suggest you give this a chance. I had fun with it and can't wait for the second one to come out. I'm super, super stoked. This book was just so good. I loved it. The next book that I read was another fantasy book, because fantasy is my main genre, and that is The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzin, or Guanzin, don't know how to pronounce it. Love these covers. Ugh. I finished this book, so first book in her Hurricane Wars trilogy, and the second book also comes out January, I believe. So yeah, this was originally a Raylo fanfic that got published, but she had to create a whole new world and all new character names and stuff. But this is definitely Shadow and Bone and Star Wars-esque, and that's why I absolutely love it. It's like those two things put into one series, and that's my favorite thing. I had so much fun with this series, this book. It was just so good. I gave this one as well a 4.75 because I so loved it. I didn't write a review, sadly. Boo. But, yeah, if you like light versus dark, literal powers, if you like enemies to lovers, being on two different sides of a war, and arranged marriages, and chosen one fun stuff, Well, I don't know if it's chosen one exactly, but anyway. It was just so much fun. The tension between the two the two main characters that are on, like, he's on the bad side, she's on the good side, and, like, he's the son of the leader of the bad side, and she's, like, in the army on the other side. So it's like, oh, the tension. Yes, I highly recommend this book. Alright, so this book is part of my October reading, and that was Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. And I absolutely loved this more than I thought I would. Oh my god, you guys, I would read this every year, every Halloween. I watched an adaptation of this, and they changed so much of the good stuff that I loved in the book, and I was so upset. Ugh, we need a good adaptation of Carmilla, people. Like, do I have to make a freaking animated version? Good lord. Anyway, I gave this a 4.75, and in my review I wrote, the start was a little slow, but once it got going, I couldn't stop reading. Highly recommend for vampire fans. This definitely has kind of a sapphic undertone to it. But yeah, this female vampire named Carmilla preys on this young woman, and there's a big secret twist. The next story I read was one of the really older vampire tales, and that's The Vampire, a Tale by John William Polidori, and I gave this 4 stars. And it really does have the same feeling of quite the same story as most vampire tales of this time did, in that this vampire is preying on a young woman, but the father of this woman, he befriends this guy who he doesn't know is a vampire, but then slowly he starts to see this guy has some weird tendencies and weird, like, activities that he's doing, and eventually he figures out that this guy's a vampire and that he's after his daughter. So he's trying to do everything to prevent this from happening. And yeah. Next I read Stephen King's Children of the Corn. This I gave a 5 star. Obviously, I love that story. I wrote in my review, enjoyed the story from start to finish. When I finished the story, I wanted more. Cults of kids in the countryside or just anywhere is always scary fun. So yeah, I like this a little more than the movie, even though the movie does give you a lot more time to spend with these characters. But yeah, for a short story, I got really attached to the characters, so I was surprised. But yeah, the Children of the Corn is a fun little read. If you just want to dip your toes into Stephen King, try his short stories, because they're definitely an easier way to get into them. The next story I read was The Castle of Otranto, and this was by Horace Walpole, and I did not love it as much as I wanted to. This is like the original Gothic novel that started the Gothic genre, and I did not love it. I gave it a 3.75, and I wrote in my review, the original Gothic novel is a collection of all the things I really enjoy in Gothic literature, and I'm so glad it created a great genre. Though it wasn't my favorite Gothic novel, it was still enjoyable to read, and any person who says they love Gothic literature must read this at least once. So, I read it. Wasn't everything I really wanted, but there were some suggestible, some weird morality going on, which is what you usually get with Gothic, and I really liked that aspect, but I don't feel like the outcome was that great. The next short story I read by Stephen King was 1408, and I gave this a 3.75, and I liked it better than the movie a little bit. I just felt like the ending was better in the book, and you could see that this character went through some freaking trauma, because now he's traumatized for the rest of his damn life. And oh my god. Stephen King just has a way of making you, even if the protagonist is a egotistical ass, you just still were like so attached to the character and were really hoping that he would make it out alive. And who would have thought a haunted hotel room would be so freaky? But it is. And I highly recommend it as another little Stephen King read. This next book, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Wanted to love this so much. Kind of a letdown. I gave this a 3.25. My lowest rating of the year, I believe. And I wrote in my review, it had the vibe I was looking for, which I really enjoyed. The children were a delight, and the main character was not very interesting, but I wasn't bored. Not my favorite gothic novel, but still a good one-time read, so another I don't like ambiguity in my literature or films, so I don't like endings that leave you guessing, or you pick what you think happens, or whatever. I hate that. Just give me an ending. Don't be lazy. Please. Thank you. Yeah, really wanted to love this. I think the Netflix show that's based on this is way better. The show is The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix. So, I'd recommend watching that instead of wasting your time reading this original novel. But at least try and read it once, if you like gothic stuff. But I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to. And it's really so disappointing. I really wanted to like it. And the last full story I read this year was the short, The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. This one I read digitally as well, and I gave this a 3.5. Another one that wasn't as good as I wished it could be. I was disappointed. Boo! In my review I wrote, the writing style was really well done, and the spooky energy immaculate, as you would expect from Poe. The story just didn't have much substance to it to keep me excited to pick it up, so I had a hard time finishing this. It's such a short story, and I just had such a hard time, and I don't understand why. But I've heard that, I think it's T. Kingfisher has written a kind of retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, and I've heard that that one's good, so I might give that a go. And hopefully I'll like that better, because the idea of The Fall of the House of Usher is so interesting, but the execution is just no fun. So, disappointing. Alright guys, so to end this video, we're going to talk about the book that I'm currently reading, since technically the year isn't over yet, and I might be able to finish this. And that is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. And so far, I'm giving it a 4-star. I'm really having fun with it. I love getting an expansion of the world of Oz, even if it's not Frank L. Baum's, mind that's doing it. But I love it. And I think I like this, maybe even this version of Oz more than Frank L. Baum's a bit. I like the darker edge, the darker aspects. And I like this story so much. It's just so interesting. But yeah, I wanted to finish this before the movie part 2 came out, but sadly I'm still 100 pages short of finishing, I think, or something like that. 150 actually, or 140, but yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and if you're a fan of The Wizard of Oz, the movie, the book, you might like this. It has some great commentary on lots of things like oppression and dictatorship and lots of things that are happening now in today's day and age, and it has a lot of good exploration of that sort of darker stuff that's happening, especially in the US right now. So I would definitely recommend reading this if you want something very intellectual to make you think about the state of the world and how people are vilified. So that way you're distracted from who the real villain is. And I really liked that. So I'll let you guys know when I finish this, hopefully before the end of the year. But yeah, those are all the books and shorts and graphic novels I read in the year 2025. I'm super happy. I wanted to read 25 books. I got to 49. So I'm very happy. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you want more book videos in 2026, please give this a like. And even if you don't, I will still make them. So thank you guys for watching. Comment down below what's your favorite book of 2025. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye!